So thank you, everybody. Thank you for your patience. As the rest of the world has moved forward with Zoom, we've gone other platforms. I'm not quite as familiar with Zoom, but we're getting there. We're getting there. So I want to thank you all for coming to today's workshop. There was a question before, is I have many people in the room. Will we all receive credit for it? There is no actual credit to be given for this. This is an optional class. It's more for your benefit to fully understand, to make sure that you are able to remain compliant if you choose to apply for them. So I'm Carrie Leary. I'm the Director of Agency Services. Hi, everybody. We have Catherine Dorby, Agency Grants and Communications Coordinator here as well. I'm going to review the HPNAP portion. Catherine will review the Operations Support portion of today's workshop. Right now, we have everybody's cameras on. I will be turning off my camera once we get started. We also have everybody on mute coming in. You are welcome to take yourself off of mute to ask questions or to use the chat box to ask questions. Catherine is going to be putting, assuming the computer cooperates with her, she will be putting a link to the presentation in the chat box for you so that you can download the slides for your convenience. Any questions before we get started? Okay, now we get to watch Carrie dazzle you and share the screen. So can you all see a screen? Okay, great. I'm going to turn my camera off now. And we're going to get started. All right, so we're here today talking about HPNAP. What does HPNAP mean? HPNAP is Hunger Prevention Nutrition Assistance Program. A brief overview, it's actually been around since 1984. Okay. It is funded by New York State Department of Health. And fun fact for the state is I don't know of any other state that offers a program like this. So it is a very unique program. It is administered by 8 of the 10 food banks across New York State. It is supplemental. It is not meant to be your primary source of funding. It is meant to supplement the cost of food and operational cost for food pantries, soup kitchens, and emergency shelters only. And the way that they do that is by both the food grant, which I'll talk about, and then operation support, which Catherine's going to talk about. They also have food safety education, sanitation supplies, nutrition information, just say yes to fruits and vegetables. And I'll talk more about that later. So let's talk about the food grant. The application process does depend on inclusion and passage of the New York State budget. So as an update, I think you've been receiving the emails. It was included, it was passed, but not at the level that we had been hoping for. So we had been hoping for 75 million for across the state. They funded it at 50 million. Okay. We are doing a push for advocacy to sign a petition to try to increase that amount and get a legislative award out of that. So Catherine is going to be putting a QR code. That's not the computer's fighting her. She'll be putting a QR code in the chat box as well. I encourage you to sign that petition. That petition gets the food pantry, soup kitchens, and shelters hopefully more funding so that you can feed more people. Okay. The grant year runs July 1 through June 30. There is an advisory board that meets late winter to discuss any changes from HPNAP. And then we review the applications for anything new or any changes that have to be made. By the first week of March, on March 1st, we are letting you know that applications are available on our website. So we did that by sending out emails to all of you. And we also mailed postcards. That is the only physical mailing you get from us, is that postcard saying the applications are online. So we have transitioned to electronic applications. where it's a fillable PDF that you can download to your computer, save, and then return to us electronically. Applications are due April 12th and must be returned by this date. Incomplete or late applications are not accepted. The review board then meets to determine the awards. Award letters go out to in mid to late June. So I know it's hard to wait, but patience, please. And then the grant is activated for any order picked up on or after July 1st. I go, whoa, sorry, I went to the end, wrong button. Some general requirements. So the Emergency Feeding Relief Organization, which is a food pantry, soup kitchen, or a shelter, you must have been operational for at least 6 continuing months before you apply for the funding. Okay. You are to spend the grant funds throughout the period, not for one large order. You must provide food free of charge with no requirements to the general public. No requirement for participation in religious prayer, ceremony, education, or consultation as a condition. You can never refuse to give food to any person on the basis of race, color, citizenship, religion, sex, national origin, ancestry, age, marital status, disability, sexual orientation, which includes gender identity, unfavorable discharge from the military, or status as a protected veteran. You must also provide food to anybody who's requesting it on their first visit, regardless of if they meet any of your criteria. As a food pantry, you are allowed to set geographical boundaries. Doesn't mean you have to, but you are allowed to. But if somebody comes to you for that first time and falls outside of your geographical boundaries, you have to serve them the first time, just like you would serve anybody else. If they don't have any paperwork that you normally require, the first time you serve them regardless, just like you would serve anybody else. You can never ask to see, nor can you record social security numbers. You must post agency and guest bill of rights. Those are available on our website. We also have them available in Spanish on our website. If you are a soup kitchen that serves more than 1 meal per week, you must have a current Department of Health permit. You must comply with food safety standards. You must agree to let us, the Regional Food Bank, visit you at least every 2 years to check to make sure that everything is being stored safely. You must receive the safe food handling training at least once every 5 years. We offer that on a regular basis. If the grant year coming up, you are due for food safety, Alex will be emailing you repeatedly to let you know that you need to take food safety by the end of May or mid-May, I think it is. So it should never be a surprise. But we do require that it's at least one person. Ideally, it should be more, but we're saying one person. Catherine, the way I have it set up right now, I can't see my chat box. So will you let me know if there's questions at any point? Yeah. Thank you. We all doing okay so far? Lovely. Other requirements, you must have a 501c3 nonprofit public charity status or be sponsored by a 501c3 nonprofit public charity. If you are already a member of the Regional Food Bank, you've already met this requirement. If you are not a member of the food bank and you're applying, then you have to attach that status, that determination letter with your application. There are minimum nutrition requirements that goes along with receiving HPNAP. So for a food pantry, soup kitchen, and shelter, a HPNAP meal consists of at least 1 serving from 3 of the 5 food groups, and at least 1 of those servings must be a fruit or a vegetable. Ideally, you should be trying to provide at least 2 servings of fruit or vegetable per meal. So the 5 food groups are grains, breads, pasta, cereal, fruits, vegetables, meat, poultry, fish, beans, eggs, nuts, dairy, milk, cheese, and yogurt. If you are a soup kitchen or an emergency shelter. Okay. We also have this, I see people taking notes. We have this on our website at regionalfoodbank.net under agency resources and forms. That is there, written there for you. If you are a food pantry, HPNAP acknowledges you may not, for example, have the cold storage for a lot of dairy items. Fruits and vegetables offer similar benefits of the vitamins, the minerals, the fiber. So they have consolidated for a food pantry. Those 5 food groups are actually 3 food groups for a food pantry. So one group would be your grains, breads, pasta, cereal. Another is your fruits and vegetables combined. And then while dairy, yes, provides calcium, it's also a really good source of protein. So they've combined the dairy with the protein groups. So that makes your 3 food groups for a food pantry. Food pantries are expected to provide 3 meals per person for 3 days in the pantry bag. So each person that you're receiving should be getting 9 meals, and that's based on that chart that you have seen on our website, you see at our site visits. Again, it is per person, so you need to be adjusting for larger families, smaller families. Okay, it's not one size fits all. While we ask how much food do you give for a family of 4? If your family is 7, you've adjusted for a family size of 7, or you've adjusted down for a family size of 2. Questions on any of that? Okay, we shall keep moving. In years past, and we don't do it every year, but last year we did host 2 in-person What's in a Bag workshops. And then due to popular demand, we did it virtually as well. What's in a Bag workshops helps familiarize food pantries with how to pack a food pantry bag according to HPNAP guidelines, how to offer the most nutritious foods, least amount of money. We did record the virtual one, and we do have that recording on our website if you wanted to listen to that. With that being said, Alex Lamberton is the Nutrition Resource Manager, and he is always able to assist if you have questions about what counts or what doesn't count, or how can I do this better. Please give Alex a call. He's extension 290, by the way. So HPNAP is given as a line of credit on account here at the food bank. It is not money in hand, it is a line of credit. The lines of credit are used to pay the handling fees for eligible items. Eligible items are marked with an asterisk if it is that static PDF that we upload to our website Monday, Tuesday, and Friday mornings. By now, most people are ordering using PWW with a live inventory. So if you're looking at the live inventory, it's going to say yes in the state grant column to know that it's eligible for HPNAP. And those costs for HPNAP eligible foods are automatically deducted from your grant when you place your order. This is an example of what it would look like. The top half is that static PDF that I talked about, Monday, Tuesday, Friday, uploaded to our website. It's outdated as soon as it's updated, as soon as it's loaded. But in the middle, you see that asterisk, yes, for HPNAP. So the marinara sauce, the red pepper sauce are eligible. The gravy is not. Okay. The bottom half is if you're looking at PWW, where you're getting a live inventory and it is up to date as of when you are looking at it. You're going to see under the state grant column, liquid starches not HPNAP eligible, not a tasty food. But the sausage patties, or the sausage, the fish patties, stuffing are eligible. When you spend your grant, the awards again are on account for any order that you pick up on or after July 1st. You are encouraged to spend the funding on a regular basis throughout the year Unspent funds, we reserve the right, unspent funds may be reallocated in December and near the end of June. Okay, to give everybody a better shot at spending these HPNAP funding. And that's because this is meant to be spent throughout the year. It is not meant so that you can get turkeys at Thanksgiving or Easter baskets. It is to feed people year round. Okay. And then all funds must be spent no later on orders picked up no later than June 20th of 2025 for this upcoming grant year. Questions yet? Okay. So how do you find out how much you have left on your account, on your balance for your HPNAP award or any grant for that matter? One way is your monthly statement. We no longer mail these monthly statements to you. Instead, you log into PWW and you access your statements through PWW. Okay. So if you are not the person who pays the bills, your choice is to either forward those statements to the bill payer or provide that login information to the bill payer. But on the bottom of each statement is going to tell you your available grant balance. You also can log into PWW and click on the grants tab. That also will show you your available grant balance. In addition, on the bottom of every invoice, so every time you pick up an order from the food bank, also on the bottom of those shows your grant balances. So there's a number of different ways that you can see how much money you have left. At this point, the system does not tell you how much you started with, but it does tell you how much you have left. One of the conditions of receiving and keeping HPNAP is that you submit monthly reports. So these monthly reports must be submitted on PWW between the last day of the month for which you're reporting and the 10th of the following month. So if you're reporting for the month of March, you can submit starting with March 31st, but no later than April 10th. If it's after the 10th of the system, if it's after the 10th of the month, the system is not going to let you place an order. It's going to tell you that you must submit the statistics in order to continue. If it's after the 25th of the month, we are going to have to physically place you on hold, your account on hold. While you should still be entering those numbers, you will not be removed from hold until you reach out to Catherine, whether you're calling her or emailing her to let her know that you have entered those numbers. Even if you are closed for the month, or if you've spent all of your funding, you still have to enter a monthly report. And why does all of that matter? Well, I'll get there, I guess. I was ahead of myself. To enter the reports on PWW, you're going to choose that statistics tab. For the effective date, if you're reporting for March, you will, from the dropdown, choose the month of March. From the dropdown, you'll choose the year of 2024. Comments. We do not see any comments that you enter there unless we go in and open up your account. The report pulls the numbers. It does not pull the comments. So you might be saying, hi, thank you so much for all that you do. That's lovely. Thank you. But if you are trying to give us additional information in there that will not be captured, you have to actually reach out to us separately. What we would like to see in that top comment section is the contact information for who is entering the monthly statistics, so that if we have a question about them, we know who exactly to reach out to. The age ranges did change July 2023. So you are keeping track of the number of children ages 0 to 17, the number of adults ages 18 to 59, and elderly 60 and above. I know it's an offensive term, more and more so every year, but that's what the state is going with. A food pantry also keeps track of the number of households being served. Okay. Soup kitchens and shelters. You are counting for, let's go with soup kitchens first. You are counting the number of people that you are serving. You are not asking them for their age. For a soup kitchen, you can visually assess how old do you think that they are. Okay. For an emergency shelter, you are counting the number of meals being provided. So if you have 5 people in your shelter for the month, it's not going to be 5 adults. It's going to be how many breakfast, lunch, and dinner did you provide to those 5 people throughout the month? Okay, so if you're an emergency shelter and you have questions about that, please give us a call to make sure that your statistics are being entered correctly and we're capturing the information correctly. That comment section on the right of the quantity is nothing. We don't need that. It's unnecessary. Any questions? Yes.
There was one in regards to service insights. I am confirming with Katie that she is entering the statistics for you
Okay.
if
Okay.
you are using service insights, but I am confirming with
She is, yes. Some of you have started using Service Insights. That is a free intake platform that we are offering through Feeding America. And you're working with Katie Van Zandt here at the food bank. And as of right now, Katie has been entering your monthly statistics for you. At some point, she's not gonna be able to keep doing that, and I'm sure they have a plan in process for how that will work. But if you're using Service Insights, the same information is being captured. Any other questions? Okay. So why do these reports matter? So these are like important state hunger stats that are used to legitimize the need for funding, additional funding. Okay, so it helps to paint a picture of the need in your community, whether it be for local funding or state funding. We can't submit our reports until we have your statistics. We are also being held accountable to the state for our reports. On the 25th of the month is when Catherine runs the report, pulls the numbers, and submits them to the state. That is why if it's after the 25th, we have no way of knowing, and you have to reach out to her because we've already turned in our report. We then have to reach out and update our report to the state. So because there is those risks, you do run the risk of losing your grant, or we run the risk of losing our grant if things are not being reported in a timely fashion. And if you have constant reporting issues, you are not considered for funding. You may not be considered for funding, or you may be getting a reduced allocation. We do have this matrix set up for the number of a late report is considered anything after the 25th. So that's what we're currently going with. Yeah, the 25th. So if you consistently have late reports, you lose funding. Some different HPNAP projects. The HPNAP Produce Grant. So when you are looking at our inventory, you might see HPNAP Produce, a case of beets, $35. And you're like, I'm not going to spend my money on beets. So what HPNAP Produce is, it is funding. It's a part of the HPNAP funding. It does not come out of your grant. Okay, it is a separate pooled grant of funding. It's largely New York State grown produce. I was gonna say product, but it's produce. It is whenever we have it available, there are no limits. You can order as much as you reasonably think that you can use and store. It tends to be hardier and shelf stable because HPNAP requires that we purchase product. The rest of our produce is largely donated. So this, we are intentionally ordering the product, which means it tends to be a higher quality product. Largely shelf stable, but not always. Sometimes we get raspberries or strawberries and they just don't have a great shelf life. But I encourage you to order HPNAP produce whenever you think you can. Even though there is a cost for it, you will see on the bottom of your invoice that it came out of a HPNAP produce grant. It does not come out of your personal award. Okay, any questions on the HPNAP produce? Okay. We also have sanitation supplies. So if we come to do a site visit to your food pantry, soup kitchen, or shelter, even if you do not receive HPNAP, we can provide you up to 3 appliance thermometers at each site visit. If you're a meal program, we can provide you up to 1 probe thermometer. With that being said, you are expected to have a thermometer in your unit at all times, and you are expected to not be waiting until we come to see you, because you need to make sure that you are storing your food at food safe temperatures at all times. The other part of sanitation supplies is if you're a soup kitchen or an emergency shelter, we do assemble kits that contain cutting boards, gloves, hand soap, thermometers, chlorine test strip kits. And those kits went into inventory early this week for soup kitchens and shelters. We have a nutrition resource manager. I mentioned Alex Lamberton, extension 290, or Alex L at regionalfoodbank.net. So Alex is going to make sure that as a food pantry, your meal package is meeting HPNAP requirements. We're going to be working with soup kitchens and emergency shelters to make sure those meals are meeting HPNAP minimum requirements. He conducts the food safety training and monitors that and keeps track of that. He is available to answer any nutrition or food safety questions you have at any point. So please make sure that you are reaching out to Alex with your questions. We have Just Say Yes to Fruits and Vegetables, which is free nutrition education for the people who come to use your programs. Okay. Right now, Kristen Bopp is the JSY nutrition educator for the upstate portion of our territory. The downstate portion position is still vacant, but that is free nutrition education to help people figure out how to use the pinto beans, for example. Okay. And finally, we have milk cards. If you are receiving HPNAP, once a year, we send you some milk cards. So HPNAP requires that we spend a certain percentage of our budget on fluid milk. We don't have the storage capacity, and you don't have the storage capacity to store a large amount of milk. So the way that we implement that is with milk cards. Largely, we work with Stewart's because Stewart's is in 21 of our 23 counties. And so we take that percentage of the funding, we convert that into milk cards, and once a year we will send you some milk cards. For those living in Putnam, for those living in Rockland County, there are no Stewart's. We work with Insera ShopRite, same principle. We send you milk cards for Insera ShopRite. These milk cards can be either given to a family. I would confirm that they do drink milk first, or you can choose to redeem them yourself and pass out the milk. Either option. Unfortunately, Putnam County, we have no vendors that we can work with. But that is how we handle the milk cards. And with that being said, they are currently enveloped up. You will be seeing in the next week, if you are currently receiving HPNAP, you will be getting an invoice for the milk cards. Do not panic. Again, this does not come out of your HPNAP budget, your line of credit. This is like the HPNAP produce comes from a separate budget, but we do have to invoice them to you. Any questions on that?
Is there a vendor that you use for the Beacon area?
For Beacon, we are using Stewart's. I understand that there may not be a Stewart's there. If you do get milk cards that you can't use, you can send them back and we can reallocate them elsewhere. And I know that's not an ideal system, but the capacity restraints of us and you in particular is just, this has been the way that has worked for best for everyone. Anything else in there? Okay. So what I need you to remember is HPNAP is supplemental. It is supplemental. Did I say that enough? This is not your entire budget for the year. You still need to fundraise. You still need to find other sources of funding. Even though it is supplemental funding, you must abide by those HPNAP requirements all year round. It's not, I'm out of HPNAP funding. I no longer have to give 3 meals a day for 3 days per person, or I don't have to serve people on the first visit. You still have to do all of the above. Applications are due here April 12th. We do prefer electronic returns of application. If you submit your application electronically, Catherine's going to send you an email saying, thank you, it's been received. If you send it through the mail, we've had some show up 3 months later. There is no guarantee. We do not send the confirmations if we get them by mail. Okay. And again, it is dependent on the New York State budget and is never guaranteed. So with that being said, I am going to turn my camera on to see if you guys have any questions before we turn it over to Catherine. Feel free to unmute if you have questions about HPNAP.
May I ask? Oh,
Go ahead, Gail.
may I ask a question about the AAP grant?
Mm-hmm.
My understanding of that was if I shop the dock at the food bank, what I pick up there comes off the AAP grant. Now, this may seem a bit odd, but I seem to be unable to spend mine. It's increasing.
Okay, so whether you pick up from here at an order here at the food bank or a delivery site, or if you shop the dock,
Yeah.
if it's HPNAP eligible, it will come from HPNAP. Your AAP is funds that are donated that never expire, and they will be used to cover anything that is not covered by a more specific grant. It is the last chance. So if you're finding that you're being charged, but you still have a balance, but you still have AAP,
Yeah.
Please call Valerie at extension 244.
Okay.
Did that answer the question, Gail?
It did. Thank you.
Welcome. Is there anything in the chat box? Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to get up. Catherine's going to come over and going to talk about Operations Support. That's your name.
All right. Hello, everyone. So good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm just going to. Can you still see the thing? Perfect. All right. Move some things around. All right. All right, so I'm going to talk about the Operations Support Grant. So this is similar and yet different than the HPNAP grant. It is still under the same HPNAP umbrella, but Operations Support provides non-food support to eligible emergency feeding programs. So the amount of an Operations Support grant is limited and is variable based on the annual state budget appropriations. So the link that I had sent earlier and what Carrie had talked about, it is important to advocate to the state to say just how important these funds are. So if you haven't already, please sign that petition and let's try to get the state to understand just how important it is, because OS and HPNAP are both affected by this. So the maximum award that can be requested is $3,000 total, not $3,000 from each category that I'll be going over shortly. So due to the limited funds and the increased number of requests, most grants will be less than that $3,000. So funding is operation expenses in 6 categories. So the awards may not be used to support any activity where the primary purpose is to distribute TFAP USDA foods. Operation support awards to any single program may not exceed that 3,000, and there's no minimum award limit. So let's go over those 6 categories. So the first one we have is staff costs. So this is only direct food service workers that can be funded under the staff costs. So this includes people that are actually engaging in serving the community or storing of food, such as cooks, kitchen help, pantry workers, and food service or storage area cleanup persons. A job description that includes specific duties and % of time spent doing those duties must be included in the application. So what is not covered are administrative personnel such as bookkeepers and directors, non-food workers such as maintenance workers. The other category we have is utility costs. And boy, do we know that all those utilities are going up every time I get my bill each month. So utility costs associated with food service or storage areas may be funded. So an electricity or heating bill for the food service area specifically. So what's not covered are trash or recycling removal, or pest control services, water or sewer charges, or telephone costs or costs associated with other than food service or storage areas. Those are not funded either. So when we say utility, we're really looking for heat and electricity or electricity. Our next category is food service space costs. So this is costs for the occupation of space for direct food service or storage areas that may be funded. So operation support can fund rent or user fees charged during the grant year. So you must include a % of rented space occupied by the food program on the application. Floor plans may be requested by us if need be. So some people just have agreements that just say, for your use for the food pantry, you pay us X amount per month, that's perfect. Or if it's a rental for like the whole building and only 10% of that space is the food pantry, then we would look at that 10%. We do require a rental lease agreement. When you get your approved budget form, you'll have to send that in to us, and that would be due in August. So what's not fundable is the cost for administrative offices or mortgage payments. Any questions so far as we're kind of going through the categories? Sarah, you have a question?
Yes. What if, like, I see you can't do the director costs, but what if I'm the only employee?
Well, if you're actively working on the
Yes.
food service, then
Yep.
that can absolutely be covered.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Good question. Anyone else so far? All right, we'll keep chugging along. Our next category is food service, paper products, and other supplies. So this is for non-durable supplies necessary for the provision of on-site meals, such as paper, plastic, recyclable bags, disposable plates, cups, napkins, dinnerware, tablecloths, plastic wrap, aluminum foil, foil steam table pans, food containers, food service gloves, disposable aprons, hairnets, and garbage bags. Thermal blankets are also an allowable expense. So that's for on-site programs like soup kitchens and emergency shelters. Food pantries may only claim food service gloves, grocery bags, cardboard boxes, or the thermal blankets. An itemized list of products and the quantity of each and estimated yearly cost must be provided in the application. So all the things that we're kind of talking about, things that we do need, are in the actual application. We do make a nice layout for you to explain where these costs are coming from. So we'll take a look at that shortly. So things that are not fundable are things like office supplies, bath tissue, facial tissue, sterno, cleaning materials, vehicle fuel, or masks. So there's a lot of stuff that can be covered. It's usually I think everyone can use some of these things in their day-to-day functions. Next, we have transportation expenses. So these are the costs for transportation of food from the food bank warehouse or food bank delivery site to the emergency feeding program. So due to the pandemic, transportation costs to deliver food and meals to recipients' home are allowed, and that is still the case. They have still allowed that. This does not cover costs for volunteer mileage from the home to the agency or trips to pick up donations or mass distributions. So we have these set up in 2 different categories. We've got mileage reimbursement at 67 cents per mile, or payments to rent a cargo van or trucks from a vehicle rental company. I know a lot of you guys do use like U-Haul and things like that to pick up your larger orders. That would absolutely be covered under this grant. Any questions so far? Because I know transportation and the disposable items are kind of a big category. All right, looks like radio silence. I'll take it as a good thing.
Hold on, there's a
Oh,
question.
there's,
What about vehicle? What about vehicle fuel?
vehicle fuel, so the reimbursement mileage is what's covering the fuel. But you can provide a fuel receipt for when you're using a U-Haul or a rental service. You can absolutely put that towards it as well.
And then, did you just say that deliveries to homes is still eligible?
Yes,
And so, and then, vehicle fuel for an organization vehicle. If you're using your organization's vehicle, it's going to be much.
okay, so yeah, if in regards to the fuel, if it is an agency's actual vehicle, the vehicle belongs to the group, then that's just gonna be done as mileage reimbursement at 67 cents per mile. You just have to show that you've done those mileage and it comes out to that cost.
I have a question on transportation.
Okay, go ahead, Debbie.
I'm new at this, so
No, it's okay.
just trying to understand that I guess the transportation is the only thing that we apply for under the operations support. So I'm trying to clarify, if we have a couple that they're the only ones, they have a trailer behind their vehicle, like an open trailer, and they go to a food delivery site to pick up, like, say, twice a month. And so a couple questions is, I'm seeing that the transportation costs that they can be, what do you call it? I can like write a check for them for their mileage, but the mileage is only from, it's not from their house to delivery?
Correct. It's the mileage is calculated from your site to our either delivery site or the warehouse. So you
Yeah.
can calculate them leaving from your agency to us and then back. And then that would be what they would get reimbursed for.
And so again, like when I look at the paperwork, it requires, there's a log that's required to
Mhm.
document this, and it talks about recording the odometer readings.
Mhm.
So if it's the same people going the same back and forth all year, do they, I mean, you know, it's the same mileage, it doesn't change. So is the odometer reading still required?
Odometer readings are still required.
And it's gotta be from the site to the delivery site.
Correct. So that's the mileage that is done. I understand if they do leave from their home, like they don't need to come to you first. So if they at least get like the beginning odometer reading and then you can do the calculations coming here and then back, then that would work.
Okay, thank you.
All right, of course. And I'm always here for any questions. So when it comes time for documentation and stuff, please feel free to reach out and I'll be happy to iron things out for you further.
Thank you.
Of course. Any other questions? All right. All right, so moving on, we have got food service equipment purchases. Goodness knows we all need those freezers and fridges and things like that. So this is for new food service equipment items essential to emergency feeding program operations, including fridges, freezers, wire shelving, ranges, ovens, steam tables, and hand trucks. Obviously, if you're a food pantry, you're looking at fridges and freezers, you're not looking at range ovens or steam tables or that kind of thing. But still, this is a great opportunity if you're looking to expand your cooler space, this is definitely a great way to do it to get funding. Special conditions regarding the equipment purchases. So the equipment would be formally owned by New York State and cannot be disposed of or transferred to another agency without prior approval. Grantee is responsible for maintenance and repairs, and the grant does not cover building alterations, wiring, plumbing work, or other installation charges. Things that are not fundable are used or reconditioned equipment. This has to be new equipment. The state is actually highly recommending that commercial units are purchased, but understanding that sometimes due to spacing, family units are allowed to be purchased as well. Office equipment, air conditionings, heating units, or fans are not fundable. Also, wooden or plastic shelving or cabinets or any sort of custom-made storage unit or appliances are not covered as well. Same thing with small electrical appliances or kitchen utensils. Those are not covered. All right, so when it comes to getting these, the grants for the equipment, we do require 2 price quotes from different vendors for a comparable unit that must be submitted with the application, and the quote should be good for 6 months. We do accept screenshots from websites like Home Depot and Lowe's from the big distributors. The service plan may be covered if submitted with the quotes. Equipment must be able to be put into immediate service. And it is New York State's policy to award the lowest quote that you send over. All right, so if you are awarded it, confirm the vendor quotes after the grant is awarded, and then purchase the equipment immediately following the receipt of the grant check. You can actually purchase it before you actually get the check in hand, as long as the purchase is made after July 1st. So July 1st is the magical date for both HPNAP and Operations Support. So all of the spending we're looking for is to be made on or after July 1st of 2024. All right, any questions before we go on in regards to any of those categories and what they cover? I know it's a lot of information, so I just wanted to check in. Okay, we'll continue on. So when you are filling out the application, you must apply for HPNAP and Operations Support every year. So this is very important. If you want to keep getting the line of credit for HPNAP, you must apply for it each year. If you want to keep getting Operations Support, you have to keep reapplying every year. All the information requested on pages 1 through 5 and page 13 of the application must be provided. So that's a lot of information, just contact information and things like that. The Operations Support application is longer, and it does have some short answer questions. So we'll go over that shortly. The application must be signed on page 13 by the executive director or the person listed as your 501c3. So sections D and E, these are the short answer kind of things. So points will be reducted if answers exceed the space provided. And please make sure, and this is the biggest help I can give, please answer the question that is asked. So if you're reviewing your application, make sure you're just taking a look at your answer and making sure that you are answering the questions that we have asked. Then pages 6 through 12 are the category specific pages. So just make sure you complete the pages for the categories that you're asking for. So where do I find these applications? So electronic versions of the application are available on the website at this link. Carrie, I think, can send the link in the chat as well.
Not created that link to where?
The applications.
Yes.
Yep. But if you just go to our website, regionalfoodbank.net, if you choose the agencies menu from the top bar, go down to agency resources and forms, then you'll see in as capital letters as I could make it, Operations Support HPNAP grant applications for 24-25 grant year. Click on that. That'll give you all of the applications you're looking for, both HPNAP and Operations Support. So make sure you save the application to your computer first before completing it. then reopen it from your save location and save again when you're completing it. So when is it due? So same as the HPNAP application, both are due by April 12th, 2024. So we are preferring it to be sent through electronically. For operations support grants, you'll send it to osgrant@regionalfoodbank.net. You can send it by mail as well. As Carrie said, sometimes we have applications show up way after the due date. So that's why we encourage the electronic one. You'll get an email back from me saying that we've got it in hand. Okay. So late applications will not be accepted. So April 12th, I'm going to just keep saying it sporadically here. April 12th is the due date. Incomplete applications will not be processed. I am working on the applications and will let you know if there's information missing. So be on the lookout for any replies from me, especially on the electronic side. Applications completed with a previous year's application will not be accepted. Service level and past history of compliance is factored into the review process. So as I mentioned, these applications are a little bit more in depth than the HPNAP applications because we do ask for some short answer questions. So we do get the applications evaluated and they are given a score. So really do make sure that you are answering the question in the short answer questions for operations support. So a little bit more about the reviewing and scoring. So section A is the service levels. That is 35 possible points. Section B is about your days and hours of operation. That is 10 possible points. Section C is the provision of nutritious foods. You got 4 possible points there. Section D, the scope of services, the short answer questions, that's up to 40 possible points. So as you can see, that is the most weighted section of this application. So if you're really focusing on those questions and giving us great answers, then that's going to really boost up your score for the application. Then section E, the budget proposal and the documentation, that is 11 possible points, and that's just giving us the information for what you are looking for specifically for the application. So that's a total 100 possible points. Those that receive a score of less than 40 will not be funded. And money is allocated according to the total number of approved applications and the score earned by each application. I think we have seen a steady increase of people applying for operations support. It really is a great opportunity to get some help on certain things. So it definitely doesn't hurt to try. Any questions so far as we go?
I have a question. It's Debbie.
Yep.
So the funding that gets the, say my grant is approved for operations support for transportation, where do those funds show up? Like, and how does it get spent? What does it get spent as?
So operations support is different than HPNAP. HPNAP does get put directly onto your account. Operations support comes as a check that
Oh.
gets sent out in the fall.
Okay,
So
got it.
I'll go over that a little bit in more detail in just a minute, but that is a big difference as well. It's not something that is pulled from your account here. It is a check that is mailed to you. And that's why we need documentation to prove where those funds are spent.
Okay, yeah, I couldn't get the connection between. Okay, got it now.
It's okay. It's a lot of information. That's why we started doing these workshops just to really try to clear things up. So good question though, Debbie. Hopefully
Thank you.
I'll go into more detail in just a second on that.
Okay, thanks.
Of course. Any other questions? All right. So once the funds have been awarded, you are notified via email of your award. The approved budget form that I will send to you must be signed and returned by August 15th. If you're awarded funding for space, then I'll need a current space agreement to be returned with the budget form. If you're awarded funding for the equipment, updated quotes for comparable equipment from 2 different vendors must be returned as well. If the approved budget form is not signed and returned by the deadline of August 15th, you will be placed on hold until the signed form is received, and you may forfeit the grant money, depending on the situation. So it's important to keep an eye out, especially end of June, I start sending out those emails for both HPNAP and Operations Support, so make sure your contact information is always up to date with us, and we'll send those out to you. So this is what the budget form will look like. So as you can see, if you're ordering for space, it kind of reminds you about the space and equipment things that need to be sent over as well. It'll have your program name, your ID and the county. And then this will actually give you a breakdown of the amount earned for each expense. So you see that there's an area for staffing, utilities, space, food, service products, transportation, and equipment that we just went over. The second page lists your understanding that you must comply with the terms of the Operations Support Grant. We'll also confirm the address that your check will be sent to. We'll throw that in there, so just double check that that's correct. And this is just reiterating that documentation would be due by May 31st of next year. Your executive director will have to sign for this as well. And also just put the name and the email of the person who is handling the Operations Support Grant.
I have another question.
Yeah, of course.
If we submit this stuff online, how do you do, and this might be more a technical question with the computer, but how do you have the ED sign it and then submit it electronically? Do you scan? I mean,
So there's two options. If you open up in Adobe, it should give you an option to do a digital signature.
okay.
Or if that's not working for you, what you can do is you can print it, have them sign it manually, and then just scan it back to us. That's fine. as well.
Okay. Okay, got it.
Good
Thank
question.
you.
You're on fire today, Debbie. I love all these
Oh.
questions.
I'm trying to get all this stuff right.
Absolutely. Any other questions? All right.
I have a question about when it asks the date you began operating.
Mhm.
Is that the date you first started the program or the date that program gained membership at the food bank?
So that's when you first started operating as an emergency feeding program.
Okay,
So,
so it can be before you became a member at the food bank.
correct. Yep,
Okay, thank you.
of course. All right, we'll go ahead and move on. So this is just an example of a space agreement sent to myself, just saying that this food pantry is housed in our church and pays a monthly rent of X amount per month. And just have a signature of someone who is managing the actual space agreement. So this kind of thing can be sent with the either the application or the signed budget form. But this is just an example of what can be done. It doesn't have to be extensive. It can just be very straightforward, just showing that there is some sort of agreement. All right. This is an example of a quote for an upright freezer. You know, screenshots are fine as long as we can see how much it's going to cost somewhere on there. Also it's good to have like the model information and stuff too, so if we have to look it up as well. All right, so timelines. So Debbie, this kind of goes into your question a little bit. So this is not a line of credit like the HPNAP food grant. In the fall of 2024, the check for the full award amount will be mailed to you, and checks are written once a year. So we'll check in with you at the beginning of next year to make sure if we've seen that it hasn't been deposited, we'll check base with you, but we'll let you know when the checks have gone out. But I believe it was in October.
Yeah, it should be by the end of September.
Yeah, end of September is what we're looking for, but we'll keep you posted once those checks have been sent out. The supporting documentation, and this is the documentation to prove that the funds have been spent accordingly, that will be due by May 31st, 2025. So right now, if you've got an operations support for this current grant year, I am looking for the documentation, and that's due May 31st of this year. So that's where sometimes it can get a little bit confusing. You get the award, you can start spending it starting July 1st, and then we'll need the documentation by May of the next year.
Catherine, may I ask
Documentate.
you?
Yeah.
Sorry, may I ask you a question, Catherine?
Yeah, of course, Gail.
Do you wish to, I don't know if I've asked you this before, and if I did, I didn't retain the answer. Would you like documentation once the grant that was allocated for OS is spent, or do you want us to continue to, once that is spent, if we're spending more, do you want additional receipts to show that?
I have arguments for either way. It's a
Okay.
little easier if it's all together on my end. However, if it's easier for you to keep track of to send it and forget it, then that's fine as well. What I'll do is I'll just I'll make notes on my end saying that I'm still looking for X amount as a remainder. So whatever is easier for you, as long as you're getting the documentation to me, that's kind of what I care about. So either or.
Okay, so really, once that OS grant is spent, that's when you would ideally want those receipts.
Yep, as soon as it's gone, definitely get that documentation over. I don't like sending people into a panic in May when I tell them I haven't seen anything, even though the funds have maybe have been spent a long time ago. So as soon as you have it spent, send it to me. I absolutely love it when I get documentation completed in the fall. It's fantastic.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I have a quick follow-up from Gail's question.
Yeah, of course.
So we're just in our documentation, we're just listing and providing the for example, if we're doing salary for a kitchen staff member, we would just need to list the pay to that employee that amounts to like the total disbursement or the total grant, right? We don't need to list, or do we need to list every sort of pay period and disbursement to that employee within that time frame from June to May? I know you mentioned like once the funds is spent, so I'm assuming we only have to account for spending that's amounts to the total grant. But is that right, or do we need to list like for an employee all of their
No. So I only need to see documentation up to your award amount. So you don't need to go crazy and send all the hours from July 1st to the end of May. Oh my gosh. So yeah, so as long as you're showing some sort of proof for your award amount, then that is what I'm looking for. Which I'll go over documentation a little bit more in depth in just a second here, but that's what we're looking for.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Of course. All right. So,
Sorry.
another question.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, Dustin.
How are you? I'm taking over Bread of Life's Food Pantry's stuff because there were some issues last year. So in terms of the operational support, we'd be applying for the utilities. The way we would show that, because the food pantry is not the whole building, right? So just we would show up, we would figure out square footage percentage and then apply that to the electric bills. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. And so the documentation showing we would need to figure out how many months worth of that percentage of our electric bills, and then so we couldn't just send in the full electric bill, right? Like you would need to send in.
Yeah, you can send me the bill. And then I can do the math as far as on my end. But I'll show you the documentation form so you can break it down so you can show me what you're taking from each one. But on the application and the budget form, it'll say that agreed percentage of that space. So like say it's 10% of that electricity bill is for that pantry.
Yep.
So you can send me the full bill, but just know that I'm only accepting 10% of that amount as documentation.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I know it's a lot of information. All right. All right, good questions though, people. Definitely keep them coming. All right. So a lot of documentation questions. So here we go. Let's talk about documentation. So for staff costs, but for any of the categories, we're going to start off by completing the documentation summary form, which I'll show you as we go. But for staff specifically, you'll attach the required time cards supported by copies of the bank canceled payroll checks or copy of the payroll registers. So the percentage of the food service work charged to the operations support grant is taken from the approved signed budget form. So you provide us the percentage of the amount of time that they work in food service specifically, and we'll take that off of the total amount that they are paid. So this is the example of the documentation summary form. This is actually the one for the current grant year. So as you can see, you've got your basic information on the top. Then it breaks down the pay date and the amount. And down here at the bottom, you actually see total pay times the percentage of food service work. As we had mentioned, that there is a specific type of work that is covered for the grant, and that'll equal the operation support expenses. Again, the percentage you list on your application, it is also listed on your approved budget form. All right, so for utilities, utilities must be incurred after July 1st. So we're not going to cover any bills for any electricity for June 30th. So any electricity or heating that is July 1st onward is something that can be paid for. So again, complete the documentation summary form, which I'll show you in just a second. Attach copy of the utility bills supported by copies of bank canceled checks or subsequent bills that show payment of the one before that. So sometimes in the top corner, you'll see, okay, amount received and then total due. So we can take and accept that because it does show that payment has been made to the company. The percentage of utility bills charged to the operation support grant is taken from the signed approved budget form, again, like we just talked about. So this is the utilities documentation sheet. Same similar information at the top. This will tell you the utility company. You can list the billing period, the amount, and the check number if you paid by check. And again, down here, total paid times the percentage of the utilities used for food service. So as Dustin mentioned, you know, the food pantry might not be the whole bill. So we'll just use that percentage of what that food pantry or program covers. So
Can I
for
ask a
state,
question? Oh,
yeah, please.
sorry. So is it reasonable to apply for just one category?
Absolutely.
So, for example, if we wanted to apply for rent, like the amount we would pay annually in rent is way over $3,000,
Mhm.
right? So in terms of when it would be time for reporting something like that, would it be like a percentage of every single month, or like how would you think about the reporting on something like that if we were to get funded for something for, you know, the cost of rent?
So it's the percentage taken per month. So if you say that the food pantry or program is only like 10% of the building that you're paying rent for, so I'll take 10% from that check for that month. Does that make sense?
Yes, but what if the only thing we do is food pantry, and so the whole rent is,
Oh, so it's 100% of it, then we would take the 100% cost.
okay, so then it could be over in less than 3 months, for example.
Very easily. I know a lot of you might pay way more than that in rent. So, you know, and that if you do keep it to one category, it does kind of make it easy because, you know, you send us a copy of 1 or 2 checks and you're done.
Okay. Thank you so much. That
Yeah, of
really
course.
Reverend Milton Stubbs.
Hello.
Hello, I just have a question as it relates to utilities.
Mhm.
We use 2 buildings. We use the church and our administrative building also. How do we calculate the expenses for utilities?
So it's not going to be for any administration building. It's only for the actual food service location. So whichever bill that corresponds to, it's going to be whatever percentage of the space in that bill, if that makes sense.
Well, we use both buildings. We have freezers and refrigerators in the administrative building. Plus, that's where we disperse the food. The intake and additional refrigeration is at the church downstairs. So we use both buildings.
Gotcha. How many electricity meters? Is it just 1 or 2?
It's got 2.
2. That's a good question.
So that makes it easier to. You might, Reverend, you might have a certain percentage on one meter and a certain percentage, a different percentage on the other meter.
Okay, how do I calculate that percentage? Can you help me with that?
Do you have any sort of floor plans that you can send to us? We can kind of help try to figure that out for you.
Okay,
Yeah, we can take that offline, absolutely.
Yep.
No question.
okay.
This is what messed us up last year, Reverend, as another Reverend. So yeah, it's a really good question.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, we'll keep it going. And please keep interjecting. I love these questions. These are really, really good ones. So space, again, we've got the documentation summary form. You can attach paid receipts or bank cancel checks. And then again, this has the percentage of space charged to the operations support grant from your signed budget form. So this one, Jamie, this is the one that you would probably end up using. You've got the check number, check date, and the amount for the check. So if you've covered that in the in only one or two checks, then that's absolutely fine. But again, it kind of breaks it down at the bottom. You've got the total amount that you paid times the space used for food service that we had agreed upon in the budget form and what that comes out to. All right. This is just an example, you know, maybe you don't have a, this is just an example of kind of a receipt saying that someone had received a certain amount for the space agreement. Goodness, my words, sorry. So this is something that can classify as a receipt. So if your landlord can write something up like this, then we would absolutely accept it. All right, so food service, paper products and other supplies. Again, we've got the documentation summary form. You'll attach paid vendor invoices or register receipts that identify allowable items purchased. Again, these are purchases that are made on or after July 1st. I'm gonna keep saying that. July 1st is a magical date for starting to spend these things. So descriptions may be written in on register tapes for clarification. If payment is made by check, bank cancel checks supporting these purchases are also required. So this is the documentation summary form for this one. Again, this will help us break down the amounts for this. So invoice dates, vendors, check numbers, and the total charge for operation support items only. So you can have a receipt that may have other items on there that not classified for operation support. That's absolutely fine, but just know that we will only be taking those items that are covered. And again, this kind of clarifies the items that are covered by this grant as well. And another thing to note, we do not count tax on any of these items. So hopefully you've got tax exemption, so taxes hopefully aren't coming out of it, but if there is tax on a receipt, we will not be counting the tax as well. This is just the cost of the items. All right, transportation expenses. So we went over a little bit about the two options. So option one, the mileage documentation. So we've got a documentation summary form for that. You'll attach a mileage log that shows dates, destinations, odometer readings, and mileage traveled. This must be signed by the driver and agency supervisor. Tolls may be included if toll receipts are included. So if you have to use a toll to come to our either warehouse or delivery sites, we can cover tolls as well. Bank cancel checks showing payments made to the driver are also needed. So this is the summary form. Again, we've got date, paid to, check amount, and check number and the amount. This will remind you of the mileage reimbursement rate. This is for the current grant year. So next year it will be, for this next grant year, it'll be 67 cents per mile. But this will kind of help break it down to show how much you've got going on, as well as a sheet that's got those odometer readings as well. We do have one, if you don't have one for yourself, an example of the mileage form.
Put it in the chat box.
Okay, Carrie has put it in the chat box for you guys to use, just to kind of help you out. This is the updated one with the 67 cents per mile for this upcoming grant year. Okay. All right, so the other transportation expense, so this is option two. So if you're renting a cargo van or a truck, we've got the documentation summary form. You'll attach copies of paid receipts or bank cancel checks. And attach the paid rental receipts from a vehicle rental company, not one. So usually you'll get an estimate for how much it's going to cost. I'm looking for the one that says it's paid. This is the actual payment that you sent in. So I know what the difference is. So if you send me the wrong one, I will definitely let you know. But do try to send the correct one. It's going to be the one that shows that a payment has been received. So this is the documentation summary for this. This gives you the rental date, the destination, the rental amount, and then if you did pay for gas, if you paid for tolls, and the total for each trip. So if you do purchase gas for the rented truck, we can take that as long as you send the receipt. And the same thing with the tolls as well, although that's all digital.
I'm sorry, what is digital?
No, I'm sorry.
Good. Hello, I'm sorry. Good morning. This is Tanya. I'm calling,
Tanya.
I'm asking information with regards of this receipt. Is it monthly that you want this to be sent to you or weekly?
So this can be done once you've exceeded your grant amount or as you go. That's completely up to you.
Okay.
But once you've spent the amount, you don't have to send me documentation after you've covered the full amount.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course. All right, equipment purchases. So we've got the documentation form. This will actually ask you for both the model and the serial numbers, which I'll show you in just a second. But we will need a paid invoice and a copy of the bank cancel check to prove the purchase of the unit. So as you can see, you've got the name of the vendor, item, model number and serial number, the quantity and the cost. So the reason why we need the model and serial number is we do keep track of these items that are purchased. We'll send you a letter of purchase, basically saying the model and serial number and just reiterating that it is property of New York State. We'll also send you a sticker to put on the unit as well. But we do need this information in order to keep up with monitoring these. We will check for these units on site visits. So you might have seen, if you already have some of these units, you might have seen us kind of look for those stickers. So that's what we're looking for. So we always keep logs of this information on the back end. So we'll be checking for those with your documentation. As I mentioned, kind of jumped the gun on myself there. So once the receipt for the equipment has been received, a sticker will be mailed to you. So you can make sure it's labeled properly as property of New York State. Site monitors will verify that the equipment is there. And if any time the equipment is not working properly, it is your responsibility to have it. So the guideline is 10 years. Basically, you're looking to keep it and keep it have upkeep on it for 10 years is kind of the guidelines for the state. You must receive authorization from New York State prior to any transfer or disposal of the equipment. Now, sometimes these things do break past the point of no return. Sometimes parts aren't available. So let me know if something is going wrong, and I might need to have some documentation showing that it is not repairable and things like that. So please keep me posted if there's any issues going on with any of this equipment. So what happens if my documentation is not submitted on time? So your agency will be placed on hold until satisfactory documentation is received. I really, really hate doing that to you guys because I know that you're serving the community and we really don't want to do that, but unfortunately, as it's a state grant, we have to be very firm on this. So please, please, please get the documentation into us on time. You may be required to attend this workshop in order to be eligible for future grants. If we had some difficulty, just want to make sure that you're understanding going forward, or you may be ineligible for future grants, depending on the situation. So I am always available for questions if, even if it's early in the fall or closer to the spring, just give me a call if you want things clarified, just to make sure that you're getting the information that you need. Okay. And as I said, feel free to send documentation as soon as you have it, just so then it's done and dusted. I'd rather have it sooner than ask you about it end of May and we're all scrambling. All right. If you cannot document expenses as required, your agency will have to refund the grant money. Any unspent funds must be returned to the food bank by May 31st of 25. You must keep all operation support paperwork on file for 7 years. And electric versions of the application and then the documentation forms are always going to be available on the website. So this is where you're going to find the applications. So again, this is our website. You've got the agencies tab up here. It'll give you an option for agency resources and forms. And right here, I tried to make it caps as much as possible. This is where you can find the applications. You can see right underneath it, we actually have the documentation forms for this current grant year as well.
Hi, this is Debbie again.
Hi, Debbie.
A question on that transportation log that I know was in the chat and I already downloaded it, but is that also available under those? Where do you get that form, like on that website there, like that screen?
I don't think we have it on here.
Okay.
But if you need it, I'm happy to send it over to you. Just
Well,
make sure.
I downloaded it. I just didn't, I hadn't seen anything like that on the website. I made up my own, but.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. It's not something that's asked for a lot, but we just have it kind of in the background.
Yeah, it's handy.
Yeah,
Okay.
but just make sure that the one that you downloaded, if it's for this new grant season, make sure it says 67 cents per mile, or make sure to
Right.
change it too if it's not, okay?
Yeah, I saw that there's 2 different years there.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so this is the screen for the applications and the information. So you'll see these big letters, and again, it reiterates that the applications are due by April 12th. This is both for HPNAP and Operations Support, and late applications will not be accepted. We do have a couple links as well that just kind of gives you a quick overview, and also some instructions on how to use the fillable applications if you're trying to do it online, just to keep it nice and neat. All right, so we do have the operations support timeline that I just kind of want to go over. There's a lot of dates kind of flying around, and there's usually a little bit of confusion because of the overlap. So applications were available starting March 1st. So you still got some time, but applications for both HPNAP and Operations Support are due by April 12th. The signed budget form, if you are given an award, will be due by August 15th, as well as equipment quotes and current lease agreements. So August 15th for that. The full award is sent out with documentation summary forms in the fall of 2024. That's when we do the checks and make sure that documentation summaries are available. The 25-26 applications, goodness gracious, are we already thinking about that? That'll come out in April. Those will be due April 2025. Those will come out March 1st, that's usually our date. Let me know if you are going to be returning any unspent funds by May 31st. Documentation is also due May 31st, and all unspent funds must be returned to New York State by May 31st. So this is handy if you're kind of forgetting about what dates are around. You've got this right on the website. Any questions as far as timelines go?
I'm sorry, this is Debbie again. I'm just trying to, for this year, like, say we were awarded a check, I'm sure we were, I have to look, for transportation part of the operations support funds.
Mhm.
Now, somehow I have to go, when I do the report for this year, I have to go back and make sure that all those funds were spent, and if they weren't, then we return them. Is that whatever's been unspent gets returned to you? Am I interpreting that correctly?
So did you receive a operations support grant for this current grant year, 23-24?
I imagine, I mean, I just took over from someone in the end of January, so.
What's your program, Debbie?
Greenfield Food Center Food Pantry. It's 1110F.
Okay. Not sure off the top of my head.
Yeah,
So-
you have to go back and look at the deposits and checkbook and stuff and see, and any paperwork.
If you want to give me a call after this workshop, we can kind of just touch base one-on-one just to make sure we're both on the same page. How does that sound?
And the answer is yes.
Okay,
It looks like you did get one, so we can go over that specifically just to make sure that me and you are good, okay?
okay, thank you.
Of course.
Is
And that's
there
same.
a time when we can ask about the first part of the presentation, the regular HPNAP grant?
Please go ahead. Questions for everything at this point, I think.
Carrie can yell.
Carrie can yell.
Okay, so I am looking at the HPNAP food grant application, and we are not currently funded, so this would be our first time applying. And it looks, and I just want to clarify, but it looks like it's 2 pages of questions to type into fields. Is that everything, or am I missing another piece? And then there's a signature page at the end, and there's a page that needs to be included but doesn't have any questions to answer.
Right. So on the food grant application, the first page is a cover sheet you don't have to return. Every
Okay.
other page, including the ones you're not filling anything out on, do have to be returned. There's not much information. It's not in depth. It's just, are you still active as a food pantry, soup kitchen, or shelter? A little bit more than that, but very basic.
Okay, so this is not so much, if I'm understanding correctly, it's not so much a competitive grant type thing. It's like, is this what you're doing? Basically, yeah, just tell us what you're doing and how much of it you're doing.
Yes, so I probably wasn't very clear on that. When you record your statistics, and in your case, Michael will be verifying your statistics, or using Service Insights, because I know you're on that. How many meals that you are providing is used to determine how much of the overall funding you receive.
Okay. Okay, great. Yeah, I just want to make sure that I'm not missing something, because that one seemed a little bit shorter than the other one. So just want to make sure I do it correctly. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie.
Catherine Reverend Stubbs.
Mhm.
Could you give me a call when you get through with this
I-
presentation
I can do that.
regarding the question that I had yesterday we talked about?
Okay, yeah, I tried to give you a call back, but I'll try you again.
Okay, all right.
Thank you. All right. We're still open to taking questions, but I did want to mention we are hosting 2 live events to answer questions directly. So you can join us on March 19th from 2 to 3 or April 5th from 10 to 11. No registration needed, so if you're just working on an application and you get stumped with something, feel free to join us then. Or, you can always give us a call, but we found that those events can be a little bit helpful just because maybe you haven't thought of a question, and kind of helps out a little bit. So if you want to join us, you're absolutely welcome to. So you can just go to under agencies, go to agency workshops. You'll see that those are listed, and just click on the link and join us. We'll send out some email reminders too. All right, so you've got my information. There's also Carrie's available for questions as well, but this is my information. If you have any questions whatsoever, anytime, please feel free to reach out and I'll be happy to help. Any other questions while you're here?
Yes, I have a question. Hi, this is Christina, Cycle from Family Charities. Last year, we actually, when we went in for the budget, we asked for the staff salary.
Mhm.
Now, if we would like to use it instead for an equipment, are we able to do it, or we have to stick to what we were approved for last year? I'm only asking because we need a refrigerator and I don't want to wait until the next grant, and I want to see if we're able to utilize it instead of using it for staff costs.
Gotcha. Unfortunately, you already signed the budget form saying that you're gonna be using it for staff, so unfortunately, we can't move it to equipment at this time. Is this replacing a broken unit, or is this just to kind of expand your?
To expand, we need to
Okay.
expand, and we see that demand is more for Newburgh. And I just wanted to see if this is something that's flexible, or we stuck to it until we wait for the next year. But you answered my question, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, if you can hold out, if you can apply for it, see if you can get funding and wait until July 1st to get it. To purchase it, then absolutely try for it for this grant year, but I understand you're probably looking to try do that sooner.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do. The demand is coming to me a lot for staff, so we just want to make sure that we have space to store the food just for the demand. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Of course. Catherine, can you talk about emergency replacement? Okay. Yeah, so the reason why I'd actually asked about whether or not it was a replacement, we do have some funding, and it's limited, first come, first serve, to help replace broken cooler units. So if you have a freezer or fridge that kind of gives out on you, give me a call first before you do anything else. And I can see if we've got some available funding for you. To kind of help with that cost. So unfortunately, it still can't exceed $3,000 total. So if you already got a $3,000 operation support, unfortunately, that's not much we can do. But if you're only awarded maybe 1,200 for something else, we can look into getting you some additional funding to help with that equipment. But again, that's to replace a broken unit. This is not to expand. And funds are limited, so call me first and I can let you know what the situation is and see how we can help. All right, any other questions? You guys definitely rocked it with the questions today, so thank you so much for asking them. And again, we're here anytime, so Carrie and I can help you with any questions you might have. And when in doubt, please pick up the phone or send an email. We'd be happy to answer the same questions over and over again. All right. Well, if there's no other questions, I think we are going to adjourn this workshop, but thank you so much for joining us and good luck on your applications. Can't wait to read them.
Thank
Thank-
you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good one.
All right,
Bye-bye.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Of course.